So something that I remember hearing is that like a while back, I think what was like maybe 2 years ago, is that we are very much too reliant on cars, and that actually has a consequence on infrastructure. And the
Yep.
way that that happens, right? That would be well, so many cities are just they're so full of cars, and they're not all that like truly walkable, you know. And so communities start to just become a lot more isolated. And so if with less of an emphasis on cars, who knows, we might see a return in true community, because well, looks like the infrastructure isn't going against the you know humans. Hope that makes sense.
People kind of think of feudalism as like this is just what we came up with in the aftermath of like the destruction of the Roman Empire and the plague. But I think like feudalism worked though, and it tends to be with human nature that we don't do what works until we're forced to. But it works because people kind of stick to their own immediate communities under feudalism. They kind of mind their own business. I feel like even if they had the means to just travel all around the country all the time, they still wouldn't have. They were more focused on their families and making a living off the land they lived on slash owned. Kind of feel like, yeah, we don't need so many cars, just like we don't really need skyscrapers. We're just so obsessed with consumption and having things just to have them, doing things just to do them. We've completely lost our soul. We've completely lost any sense of why are we doing any of this? And if we remembered why we bother with any of this, most of that stuff goes away naturally. We don't need skyscrapers. We don't need so many cars. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I'm a monarchist is like talking about symptoms all the time. That's what politicians do. That's all politicians do. Talk about symptoms, symptoms, symptoms. We need to change the system. We need to change why and what we do. If we just stick to like what we've always known and keep trying to tackle the symptoms will never go away. That's the way I see it.
I agree. Um, what Scurvy Run's point was, I'll go real quick there and then I'll address your point. Yeah, carless cities I think are really helpful, and how it connects to your point is, I think that what you said about how people and the problems that have been happening and plaguing us, they are, towards this growing kind of symptom area that you've mentioned before. You mentioned about how the politicians talk about the symptoms, and I think it does kind of remind me of how whenever we go into any of these new problems that occur, whenever something new occurs, we do kind of have this tendency to roll the problem under the sleeve. And I think that's there is a problem where I think even a lot of the average Americans do this, not just the politicians, and that's what I was trying to connect to. I think people have this tendency to kind of, you know, rug it down below too. I think a lot of people do kind of they see the problems, they count the problems, they understand the problems, just like how they know the problems with the cities, but I mean, they don't really have that will or ability to change anything, and I think that kind of connects back to it with human nature. I think as long as you're compliant, nothing's really gonna change. It's just like the "nothing ever happens" meme. People aren't gonna actually change anything unless something gets changed. It's just like Newton's law, it's unless something else is gonna change that force is just gonna stay the same. No, there will be a status quo, and the status quo will be there indefinitely. Now, if you push that balance, that's the problem I could be concerned with. If you push that, you're going to start a lot of problems. Like, you know, if the entire country collapsed tomorrow, of course it would be, you know, anarchy. A lot of horrible things would happen. But with every problem that does occur, with every forest fire, there is a new flower that will spawn out. There's new trees that will blossom. You kind of have to rely on that and the looking at the future, and that's what I think we are doing. and what we should especially put the emphasis on.
We should talk about like how democracy is literally the most feminine system imaginable. Like as you
Yes,
guys were talking
sirree.
about it, I was just thinking like, yeah, another thing that makes democracy so feminine is like how like voters just naturally just sit around and just hope someone else will do something.
That and the whole thing about just agreeing upon consensus. That's also kind of feminine
Yeah,
in its
popularity
own.
contests.
Yeah, there's also the part where even when there's a problem, they don't want to fix it. They just want to look good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess trying to fix it.
Yeah,
It's
not
virtue signaling.
Yeah, there.
Yep. And I won't. Did you see the Ted Cruz Tucker Carlson interview? I won't talk about Israel because I think we already discussed it in depth. But I will say the
You
fact
could
that
never not discuss Israel in depth enough.
okay, okay, we might discuss that. But the point I was getting to was look at how Ted Cruz answers these questions. He doesn't know anything. He was asked, "What is the population of Iran?" And it's important because Ted Cruz wants to oppose the government. He wants to destroy the
Depose.
government. Yeah, he wants a regime change. So, yeah, that is if his goal is regime change, he should probably know the demographics, and he should probably know the freaking population.
A lot of
That's
stuttering.
super important.
There are Persians. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Not
you know,
not to mention how.
and same thing with. Oh, yes.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead and finish what you're saying first.
Oh, and then the other one was, of course, APAC. When he was asked about APAC, he doesn't really know what he's doing. Like, he's just paid. It's because these senators, they're just given money to talk. They're just basically like the news reporters. I said that on Twitter. They're just like the news reporters. They're just paid to just say whatever and vote on whatever.
Yeah, politicians are just
It's really
puppets.
the nerds who write everything.
Politicians don't really run anything. They're just puppets. Like, how do they get elected in the first place? How do you know? How do you even know who they are? How do you even know who to vote for? Who's on the ballot?
Yep.
Who's qualified to be voted for? It's because somebody somewhere paid for them to be in your face, to be on the news, to be in the headlines, all that shit, to be able to like have these, big events and stadiums. Like, someone's paying for that, and it ain't you. You wouldn't even know who they are. So obviously,
Oy vey, to even imply that is anti-Semitic.
Bro.
I mean, even when you don't bring in the Jews, it's like, but
Yeah.
okay, let's say it's election time for like any local official. We never hear about it, but somehow they end up elected.
The first thing that stood out to me, since I didn't watch the whole thing, but I've definitely seen clips of the Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz interview float around. First thing I noticed when Tucker was asking him those questions, how pedantic Cruz was about the examples that Tucker brought up as far as knowledge of the nation of Iran, and he'd say things like, "Oh, I'm not. How am I? I don't go around looking for the populations of any particular country." Just how quickly he was to ignore, not see, or just outright dismiss the point, just for just an example of what Tucker was trying to get him to see that. Yeah, he's advocating for regime change on a nation he knows nothing about. That was the point. And Cruz was just so quick to try to make it about those specific details when that was just besides the point. Tucker could have brought up anything about Iran and the point would have stood.
the thing like oh wow, the thing that like motivates him, he doesn't even know. Like, in the Bible, it says that if you bless Israel, you will be blessed. Okay, where is that? Somewhere, but it's in there, okay? And that's why I am so motivated to help Israel always. It's somewhere in the Bible. Just trust me, bro.
Yep. And then when Tucker
Specifically,
was
the
saying, "Hey, I'm a-"
1948 founded state of Israel. Fuck off.
Exactly. And when Tucker Carlson asks questions about APAC, Ted Cruz literally just goes, "You're obsessed." He just says, "What are you, anti-Semitic?" And then Tucker just goes like, "What?" Where'd you lead to that conclusion? All I was doing is
How
asking
quick he
questions
is
about APAC.
here.
Yeah, we're the obsessed ones. Meanwhile, Ted Cruz says he joined politics just for the state of Israel. Hmm.
Very suspicious.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm,
this exemplifies why none of us will ever be like big figures of any kind. Like we'll never have like millions of followers on our channels. This is why. Like the more sense you
Because we
talk,
have integrity.
yeah, the more sense you talk, the more real you are, the less people want to listen to you in the first place. But certainly the people in power who are full of shit will never back you.
see, the real funny part is I don't, at least, yeah, you know what? Screw it. I think I can speak for all of us here. None of us are particularly hateful people. It's not, oh, like, oh, you people, you hate Muslims or you hate Jews or whatever. Sure, I mean, we may be angry with these groups of people for the time being for what they are doing, but if a lot of these people weren't doing the things that they're doing, at least the ones who are screwing up the West the way they are, we wouldn't have an issue with them. We
It'd be
wouldn't. There'd be
very,
no reason to.
it'd be
Well,
very
I
out
mean,
of
I'd
sight,
find
out
a
of
reason,
mind.
but
What, Okaru?
It'd be very much out of sight, out of mind. I mean, yeah, because when you think about it, okay, let's say Israel disappears tomorrow completely. That's not really gonna bother anyone or affect anyone from us. It's just gonna be okay, it's gone. What next?
Yeah, it's just human nature. Like when one person dies, it's a tragedy, but when many people die, it's a statistic. It's just human nature. Like, sorry,
Hmm.
kind
I
of hard
mean,
to get
I
us to care
guess,
about
but
everything at all times.
here's the problem, though. I agree, but I do think that let's just say the state of Israel was blown up by Iran. How do you think the entire control media, the ADL, all, Ben Shapiro, how do you think they all would treat America? They would probably force America to try and create a new state and to, they would try and push even more. And if they can't, they'll treat this like a Nazi country. They'll treat this like it's Hitler 2.0 more than like actually, because they'll say it like they don't mean it enough. But until this happens, because the state of Israel, keep in mind, has been in America's foreign policy of defending it for decades. The original meaning of goy is not just used as a slur, but it's also its original meaning was literally just a person of state, a government, a country. They didn't
it
have
means
that. They
cattle.
never had one, and that's why
It
they
means cattle.
yes, it does, but they also referred it as they referred it to two different meanings. One of them was also, because they were really jealous. They have envy and a hatred for a lot of the Gentiles because they owned a country. They had a homeland. The Jews never had a homeland. I mean, like, look, after the Romans defeated them and turned it to Palestine of Syria, it was Syria, Palestina, whatever it was. I mean, like, they kind of had everything gone, you know, and then after the Rome fell, I mean, they never had one. They came to other countries. The countries didn't like them for their bad actions, kicked them out. Happens 109 times. And it's now I think like a lot of them are just
111.
yeah, 111. And then they finally get their state. 1948, they finally get their state. They're going to advocate everything to defend it. They wanted to build nukes because they were afraid that the Holocaust would happen again. And, this is happening in the 48. They killed JFK over the state of Israel. I mean, they will defend it with their life. So if the state of Israel ever gets really like about to be destroyed by Iran, I think they're gonna like really push and it's going to hurt us. It's going to affect us. And if the state of Israel's destroyed, then they're going to come for all of us.
Some sort
Censorship's
of
going to
like
roll back up.
some sort of scorched
Censorship's going to roll
earth
back on up
reaction.
on us.
It's another reason democracy is horseshit, especially when your country is like purposefully mixed as far as like cultures and ethnicities go. When people vote, when everyone, basically everyone is given power. That's the point of democracy. It's literally in the name. Everyone has power. Okay, but how does that stop people from trying to get power over each other? It doesn't. It's not the compromising system everyone wants to believe it is. it's perpetual power struggle. And why do blacks never shut up about race? Why does this happen? Why do groups keep talking about themselves specifically, not the country, certainly not the West as a whole? They only talk about their groups compared to everyone else. Everyone's a victim or an oppressor. This is not new to the woke era. This is how it's always been. It's just, it was quieter up until the last 10 years or so. But
Yeah,
everyone
because
that's how different groups, especially if they're some sort of minority, that's how they always view themselves. We're oppressed simply because we're a minority. That's why the only reasonable kind of state to have is an ethno-state. Everyone has the same religion. Everyone has the same blood. You're not all relatives, but you all have the same origin.
ancestry.
Ancestry.
Yeah, ancestry. I can't think.
I mean,
And
yes,
just
you
so
have.
we're clear, since sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
And just so we're clear, to anyone wondering, again, just thinking this is something we only want for ourselves, and by all means, everyone else can back me up, just in case I'm not speaking for myself here. We want this for everyone, for all peoples around the world. We just notice that as far as the rest of the world's concerned right now, we're not allowed to have it. So we're speaking up.
I have a bit of a confession to make.
Awesome.
So you know how I always
Good.
talk about my solution to all of our problems is empire, like establish an emperor, and everyone just breaks up into their own kingdoms. It's kind of starting to dawn on me that wouldn't truly long term fix anything, because there's still going
Each
to
of
be
those-
people, especially certain races, that fall behind because that's just what they do. They're genetically inclined to do so. And then they're going to say, we're victims. We're victims, we're victims, we're victims. And it's these other kingdoms that are preying on us, these other kingdoms that are doing this to us and doing that. And they're either going to start getting really savage, or they're just never going to stop pestering the emperor to do something about it. And the emperor's going to be like, the hell do you want me to do about it? What you keep saying is happening is not actually happening. You just suck. But
Well, not
Why
to
do you think
mention.
I was so
the
hesitant
victim-
about the idea?
the victim complex will never end in that system. So,
But Archaeosophy, we was kangs and shit. Yous can't discriminate against us. Use part black yourself.
fuck off.
Those various kingdoms would also look at the emperor and go, "Why are you special? We have our own kingdom. We want your spot."
Yep. It never ends.
Yeah.
See, this is
well,
amazing hearing right now, since I was kind of coming from, I mean, I didn't make the exact same points you were just now, but I was coming from a similar concern. After thinking about it, though, I had thought today I had a change of heart on the subject. So it's, I don't know, it's a little weird, kind of being somewhat validated with some of what my concerns were, but if you want, I can explain what I've thought about since, just to see if maybe there is still a case for it.
Go ahead.
yeah, yes.
Well, as much as those issues would be prevalent, something I must admit, and I've thought this for a while, I've entertained the idea of imperialism, even though I'm generally against it. I've had to reconcile things like the fact that we already had systems in place that did help bring other peoples up by our standards, like with colonialism and the like, however flawed those were. Give it a decade, right? Let's say the entire Western world, heck, we can be broader than that, the White and East Asian worlds both pull out from the rest of the world, say 10 years. There may be value in creating empires again for those nations if there's recognition from those peoples that they need our help. Now, if they prove they don't with their own resources after we completely pull out, no government aid at least, or any assistance of that nature, for obvious reasons, I think charities and religious organizations should still be able to try and help if needed. If they decide afterwards they need our help and they come to us and they prove that they are willing to negotiate an arrangement in which all people's benefits, there could be some value to that. Although I guess that still begs the question, how do we stop their descendants who come afterwards from taking for granted the benefits they would get under said system? And it could also be argued what's stopping our descendants from neglecting or not appreciating them in turn.
Well, I have a question for you in that regard. Let's say you're the, I guess, higher technological empire. For what reason would you have to help the, I guess, lesser country or lesser empire beyond just goodwill? Like, what would you get
And
out of
that's
helping them?
see, that's just it. That was one of the things that I struggled with, and even then, I still pretty much agree with what you just said. If it would have to, the only benefit would be a desire to fulfill a desire to lift other people up. That's really all that I can think of. And yeah, you're right. There really isn't any other benefit to it.
I mean, I know, I'm not sure if everyone's played the game, but in Mass Effect, this is kind of what happened between the Krogan and I forget what the other species is. The Solarians. The Solarians helped the Krogans. The Krogans basically wiped themselves out. And at that point, the Solarians are like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this.
This could be maybe a little bit controversial, and I'm actually a little bit sad to say, but I think you kind of have to. If you want to fix most of the problems with specific minorities getting along with the majority, first you need to actually have a more distinct majority, which means, well, this one's a little different from the one I was gonna say. I propose, I think you have to take away the 1964 Civil Rights Act. I don't think the Civil Rights Act is reflective of today. It doesn't represent us today. It doesn't help us today. I want to help these people, but the Civil Rights Act is not helping them. It's not helping us. It's not really helping anyone. It's not a good bill. I think we have to get rid of it. And then the other one was I think you have to have white citizens more than the majority, and that definitely means you have to do mass deportations. We're not gonna do anything cruel, but we have to deport everybody. Like, if you're an illegal, you have to be deported. You had millions of these illegals come in.
But this is
Like
just more
10 million
symptom
under
talk,
Biden.
dude. This is just more symptom talk, and especially when it comes to like the civil rights
No,
movement.
no, it's not symptom talk because I talked about the one of the roots of the problem, which is the Civil Rights Act. Is that
That
not a
is a symptom,
symptom?
dude. This is what I was going to explain. No one who they think, anyone who thinks they benefit from it. This is democracy, which means everybody has power. Large swaths of people, blacks, women, they think that benefits them. They don't want it gone. It's never going to go. And even if it
Yeah.
did, there's the
Don't
descendant
go like
problem
that.
that we just mentioned, which is
Look, you're assuming I want a democracy when we do this. You can't. A democratic system would never. They wouldn't even reduce any kind of cost with healthcare. What makes you think any Democrat would ever want to
I'll be
get rid of the
back.
Civil Rights Act? This is assuming that we actually have a real government. I'm saying that's how you solve that problem with you know, with minority groups fighting with the majority. You need a wider majority. You can't have diversity. Diversity is going to destroy us. And what you need is you need a strong majority of people who, white people who actually have an identity. Because right now, here's the problem with a lot of white people. I mean, like Justin Bieber and like a lot of these white guys, they act like Eminem. They act like black people a lot. They act like rappers. They don't really have it. They don't have like a sense of actual identity with a white group. And then they, it's like with a lot of white people, they kind of just assimilate, and then some of them even, that's where we get wiggers from. They don't know what white
Well,
is. And that's another
well,
problem. Like people don't have an identity, and it's starting to
well.
form now.
The thing you brought up for solutions, those are good ideas for the United States, but I was talking about the world as a whole, just addressing the general concept of empires, of imperialism, and bring up
Oh,
why I
of
was
course.
initially against it and why I thought over the past few days I may have had a change of heart. I mean, deep down, I think most of us just want to help people, just as many as we can, even if they're not necessarily of our own. But the real question is, how do we actually go about doing that? And
The
how do we
helping's not
address
with
the ways
money.
that,
That's the thing.
well,
It's
not just with, well, not just money. If you let me finish my point for the moment, there's too
Okay,
many
sorry.
things. It's all good. There's too many things that we've been convinced culturally, supposedly help people, and as long as those go unaddressed, any aid that anything we do that we think is helping will only further the problem and continue to fester really resentment against us.
I think with all things politics, and I'm yet to be proven wrong on this. If I am, feel free to point it out. But I think with all politics, the truth about politics and human nature, you can always reduce it down to parents and children. Just look at the relationship between parents and children. And that's basically everything you need to know about how everything works, including charity, trying to help people. For example, you're trying to help your child, I don't know, just feel better. Maybe they're just miserable, they're depressed or something. Is your solution, all right, here's $10,000, have fun, and then they go spend it on, perhaps drugs, or at least they could do that, but you thought you were helping by just throwing money at them? Doesn't help. You can reduce all politics down to this. And you can always ask yourself, like, would a parent do this for their child? Would that truly help their child? Usually the answer is no, especially in a democracy. So what helps? What actually helps people? You help them help themselves. If they don't have an attitude of, I want to improve, they're not going to. Period. You ever tried giving
Yeah,
money?
Like teach the fish
You ever
or
tried?
teach the fisherman how to fish rather than give him the free fish, right?
But they have to
Is that
have
how it goes?
they have to have the desire to learn how to fish. Have you ever given money to a homeless person? Did that fix their problems? No.
Nope.
Never.
Same principle.
Well, it's like my mom would always say. She used to be a drug addict, but when she knew she was pregnant, she stopped. She didn't need anyone's help. She had the force of will to go, no, I need to stop doing this. People need to have
Well,
that
that's
same kind of mindset.
Yeah.
what I'm hoping if we ever manage to, cut foreign aid off for, about a decade, just both the East and the West just pull out. The thing that I would hope for, should it ever happen, is a lot of these other countries, if they can make it on their own, great, more power to them. But if not, hopefully they realize, wait a minute, we've taken advantage of these other countries who we've pointed ire at for so long, and now we're all starving to death. And I can only hope that they come to their senses afterwards, lest they, well, lest they all kill themselves.
The thing about that is they would sooner throw a fit and say you and start just blaming the countries that pulled out and eventually just end up in like a tribal society.
You're probably right. As much as I'd hope that wouldn't be the case in so many instances, I haven't seen anything to indicate otherwise. That's the real sad part right there.
It's sad, but that's kind of how real life is.
Yeah.